It's Something to Offer with your host, Anne-Marie Offer. Her guests are Mallory Abramson, a painter and devoted gardener who was one of the founders of Clinton Community Garden. Robert Kalaidjian, an artist creating political art who makes special street signs for demonstrations and for public awareness. He has made signs on commission from ACT UP and for Local Union 1199. And Steve Hayes, comedian and writer, two-time winner of the MAC Award and co-author of the play Kiss Me Quick Before the Lava Reaches the Village.
Hello and welcome to Something to Offer. This show focuses on people who are going after their dreams and creating their own personal success. I'm very pleased to have Mallory, Robert, and Steve with me today, and they'll share with us what it takes to really challenge your dreams. My first guest is Mallory Abramson, a painter and a devoted gardener who is one of the founders of the Clinton Community Garden, which is the beautiful setting we're in right now. Mallory, thank you so much for being here. My first question I'd like to ask, the site of this garden, the Clinton Community Garden, was an abandoned lot for several years. What inspired you and the other people to create a garden?
Well, we'd run out of other projects at the moment and decided to try and do something with it. Our first thought was to make it a playground, but this was not a popular idea in the neighborhood at the time. So we just got over, three of us actually, and started cutting. And well, first we carried out a lot of junk. There were even abandoned cars by that time. We got a lot of help from the sanitation department. They brought a front-end loader in and took away mountains of trash. And then we sort of raked it down and started cutting the weeds. And I would be out here with scissors, and people would walk by and laugh. And my friend Rick, brickmaker who helped to start the garden, decided one thing we needed was a lawn. So he set up, he got people to donate bags of grass seed, 650 bags of grass seed. And he got quite a few and a large donation from Con Edison.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, then he spread this around, and horse manure from a couple blocks down toward the river from the Chateau stables, and he got it started. We had to string wires with tinfoil on them to keep the birds from eating it all. And one day put a lot of manure on, and it turned warm.
Oh, goodness.
And he was very unpopular in the neighborhood for the next week. But gradually, people stopped laughing, and someone came over and helped. And pretty soon it all came together.
So it's all, everything has been voluntary, basically.
Yes, yes. The city, the neighbors, various organizations.
How does the daily or yearly operational functions go in the garden? You know, how does it operate? What type of
we try to have as few rules as possible. What we set up is a committee. It's a board of directors, actually, but we call it a steering committee. We wanted to stay away from all kinds of symbols of authority. So the steering committee, which is 10 people, administers the garden. We decide when it opens, which is dawn, when it closes, dusk, what can go on here and what can't. We don't allow dogs, and we've just been forced to prohibit cats as well. We have a lot of new gardeners every year because this is rather a changing neighborhood. It still is. So this year we had 21 new gardeners.
Oh, that's quite a few.
And they're all working very well.
And they're not all like necessarily from this block. It's from...
No, it's from 34th Street up to 59th, and as far west as Broadway. Mostly, the great percentage of people are from the block, and the immediately surrounding blocks. It started out in the very beginning as being just a block garden, but I talked the committee into changing that because I knew we couldn't get anywhere if it was just a block enterprise. We had to include more people. And that's when really the garden started to look much more beautiful.
What type of people, different varieties of people keep this garden alive, and what types come and garden and use the garden? Because you observe a lot of people here, I'm sure.
Yes.
So.
Well, there were several young men who needed the exercise, they felt, who would mow our lawn. We had a power mower for a while, but when we lost our gardener mechanic, the power mower wasn't getting fixed, so we reverted to the push mower, which a lot of people prefer anyway. There were people who came here just to have a cup of coffee in the morning and relax, read their papers. Elderly people, they were the hardest to get into the garden. They'd sit out on the sidewalk and tell us what a lovely place it was, and we'd say, well, come on in. And no, they just wanted to look in. Well, finally, some of them did come in, and now it changes over the years. The first people we had here, I remember one lady grew a crop of beans, and I said, oh, those are about ready to pick, aren't they? And eat. And she said, oh, I couldn't.
She was so happy to have grown them.
Just to grow them, the idea, it was like eating her children.
Right.
But I think at first people didn't realize that vegetables came from the ground.
They were surprised that their seeds, what they came with. I really want to thank you, and it's just such a wonderful place to be able to come to, because most people don't have a backyard. Most people don't have something where they can really relax and enjoy themselves. I mean, they can go up to Central Park, but this is so nice and so close. It's beautiful. My next guest, Robert Kalaidjian, is a thought-provoking artist whose work has been seen in New York and California. He's currently working on political art projects that reach the masses. Robert, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Great. I want to ask you first, what type of efforts does it take to develop your craft as an artist?
Well, being a painter or sculptor is a lot like being an athlete. I mean, it's something that you have to train at. So, it involves a daily discipline. And, I try to work as much as I can, for at least 4 to 8 hours a day. But, you never know when you're going to want to work, and you get inspired. You might stay up all night, or, maybe you'll have a period when you don't paint for a little bit. But usually, like all performing artists, you really work at it, like I say, on a daily basis. And, it's part of having a discipline, a rigor to your life. And, it's like working out. So it's something you just pursue all the time.
You're currently working on political art projects. I want to know, how does formal art merge with this type of art that you're doing now?
I think if you look at history, oftentimes artists are sort of in the service of society, and often in periods of history, there's more social urgency that artists have to address. In this century, you had the WPA and artists in the 30s and 40s really working for social causes. You had the Russian constructivists in the early part of the 20th century. And then you can go back, you can look at the Crusade and Byzantine art, that artists working at social issues. You see it in painters like Goya. In the French Revolution, you had artists, David, who were involved in using their formal capabilities to make political art. So, I mean, artists communicate how the environment affects people. They communicate emotions that are in the world, that are in themselves, that are in the public, and they bring them out in a way that can be shared. So that's really the pursuit. And there's many ways to do it, and it's been done many ways in history. But I think right now we're really at a point where the social is taking precedence in the world. And art needs to sort of go along with the situation at hand and become more active.
Which is what your work seems to be.
Yeah,
I mean, your work's been been used in demonstrations, marches, and video documentary work.
Mm-hmm.
That's
yeah. There's a basic frustration that I have about the art world, and it's sort of a very hermetic environment, and it's a certain place where you go to see art, and you see a sort of a select few artists really. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all, but it also seems limiting a lot of times because there's so many ways to express art. There's so many venues. So really, the idea is to take art out of the studio and into the streets and make it really functional. I'd really like to see my work used and have it really serve a purpose. So I'm involved in some social projects, political activism. I'm working on a project right now. It's called Alien Crossing. And basically, it comes out of a frustration that I had about the whole Middle East war, the war in Iraq. And I felt that, this is an incredible tragedy that we were spending all this money and creating all this destruction and death. When if you look around the city, for example, all those problems exist here in such great magnitude.
Exactly.
The death rate in Harlem for an adult male is higher than Pakistan. And we have this real crisis in the city. The city really has social problems that aren't being addressed. So this project seeks to do that. And we basically go around installing the sign. And we go about it as if we were working for the city. We come in a nondescript white van, and we're wearing municipal coveralls. And people on the street think that we're working for the city. We put the sign up. But then as they look at the sign, they realize that it's not your typical street sign. It's not giving directions to make a turn or something. It's actually has a really implicit statement in it. And then the dialogue starts to occur between ourselves putting it up and the people on the street who are looking at it. For example, if I was shooting up in Harlem, which is a predominantly black neighborhood, and we were white, say the crew members, there's this whole tension, racial tension, that starts to develop in the project, in the focus. And we go along, we try to videotape people's responses. The fact that we were dressed like city workers, there was that tension between the municipal, the city authority figures, and the people who don't have that power. There's so much frustration and so much energy that's like pent up, and it's out on the street. And it's got to come out in a positive way. If it comes out in a really positive way, it'll have such a better effect than just when it turns to just pure hatred and disgust. So, I try to make people aware that we're not really, we're trying to do something positive, something that's really, beneficial, and get them involved in this idea about art and politics, and, make them feel like, they really do have a say, because we do.
Well, your work is very, very powerful, and I really want to thank you so much for being with us, and I look forward to all the projects that are coming up.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
My next guest is Steve Hayes, a lively comedian and writer, a two-time winner of the MAC Award. Steve, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me on Something to Offer. Somebody said you're going to be on offer. I said I'll be on or I'll be off, whatever she wants. What is it you want?
You have an act that you're doing now, and I know you've done several others. How does one put together an act?
Okay, well, I guess you've got to have a concept of some sort. My concept being that we all have everyday things that we have in common. We all get married, we all have babies, we all have pets, we all go shopping, we all live in the city, anything like that, and just take it one step further, But years ago, Lucille Ball, I remember I read, said something that when they were doing I Love Lucy, they always kept things very simple. Lucy buys a toaster, and they build a whole thing around that. Well, that's what I try to do with each one of my characters, because that's what I do. I do about 12 different characters, and each one has like a little beginning, middle, and end. Like each one is a little play, So it's kind of fun for me, and they're not all broad. There's some of them that are kind of little, pieces of needlework,
I wanted to ask you about the characters in the show. Where do you draw them from?
A lot of them from people in my life, my background, people that I deal with. You know, I listen all the time to conversations and stuff. I'll hear one line of a conversation and I'll build a whole character around it, you know. People that I run into all the time, you know, and people that I think I can say something through.
We have a clip of your work. Do you want to set it up for us a little bit?
What you're going to see basically are one-liners from about 7 or 8 of my characters. This has all been edited together. It's just sort of like a potpourri of shots of different characters. So 2 or 3 representing my mother. I use my mother quite a bit because she's a funny woman, and everybody has problems with their mothers in one way or another. One piece I do about my mother is it's 47 cliches that she used on me back to back. Like, you know, you're out or you're in, it's your life, it's no skin off my nose. She thinks she's God's gift to something, I'll tell you. Just, you know, lean in the doorway, let me know when you're home, so I don't worry. There's more to life than sex. Believe you me, Buster, your father and I don't ask you to do very much around this house, but one thing we demand is respect. And when I tell you to pick up your room, I expect you to do it, and no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Do you want me to give you something to cry over? Don't move over, don't pull over, don't turn, you know what I mean? All those, you know, one right after another. My mother then, when she saw the piece, she came up and she said, "You forgot to get a haircut." So I can't please her no matter what.
No.
Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. Absolute vodka martini. Ice on the side, olive on the side, vodka on the side. Glass on the side. Or she'll say something like, well, everybody said she was so much better liquor with rolled teeth, and I wouldn't say anything about her. I wouldn't say behind her back first. You know. Hi, honey, I just thought I'd call her. You know, you're one of the ones who can't come home. Your grandmother's been worried about you, and why don't you come home pretty soon? We'll send you the money. Yeah! Ma, 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 ma. She'd go, just a minute, Margaret. Take the rise to the hut of my father. I said, Morris, I have nothing against the girl as a whole, but if that's all she aspires to be, then I think you've got problems. Hey, honey, you want to bill and cool? Well, cool now, I'll bill later. I think one of the most valuable things I've learned recently is the art of listening. Just a second. King Kong. My mother and I have these discussions now. You know, you get to that phase where, you know, you're adult enough to go home, and you sit down and you have talks with your mother like she's a real person. She's not. She's your mother. You tell her everything about your life. She tells you some things about her life. She writes down everything you've told about your life. And you hear it in the grocery store later. Oh, so I understand you're a manic depressive anal retentive. Want some gum? Oh, thanks, Ma! Well, I didn't think it was a secret.
You won the Mac Award twice. What was that like, and has it changed your career in any way?
Well, the MAC Award stands for the Manhattan Association of Clubs and Cabarets, and it's their way of honoring people. It's like, I guess, it's like the Oscars or Tonys or Emmys of the nightclub industry. Yeah, and I've been nominated 4 times, and I've won it twice. It's a great honor.
You get this little button or something? Is it
no, it's actually a sterling silver little medallion, and it was a real thrill. I have to admit, it was. I mean, both times it was a humbling experience. It's to be honored by your peers is always. I mean, I take it that very seriously. I was deeply touched, and it's, you know, it's a whole fantasy. You know, you go to the, like, they always have it like at the symphony space, you know, and it's like 1,500 people, and they get up and they read off the names of the nominees, and they rip open the envelope and they go, and the winner is, and they say your name. I mean, we've all been raised on that kind of fantasy.
Do you get
from the
up and
Oscars.
give a
Yes,
speech
you
and
get up and
everything?
give a speech. You know,
wow.
you thank with all the little people you slept with to get you there tonight. And, you know, I mean, it's a nice chance of, it's a nice chance to, you know, be recognized by people that you respect in your field.
Thank you. It's been really great. I've had a great time. Thank you so much. It's fun.
Thank you for having me. It was so sweet of you to let me come on the show.
It's great.
And your whole crew was wonderful, and this garden was great. So, thanks.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Now I'd like to throw out some questions to all of you. Any of you can answer them. Don't feel you have to. You can ask me a question. You can ask each other a question. So we'll just have a little discussion. I want to ask first, what is the ultimate goal you have in terms of your work?
Money. No. No, I mean, I'd like for myself, I'd like to have a one-man show off Broadway. I think that would be wonderful. Because artistically, that would really fulfill a lot of things that I'm more in control in that situation, and I like being in the driver's seat, so that would help me out.
Some of the political art projects that I've been working on, I'd like to develop them to a larger scale and have projects going simultaneously in the same cities, various cities. And I'd just like to keep working and reach a larger audience and be productive.
One of the reasons I thought about when we started this garden was that we could have art shows in here and I could display my work. Actually, we've had about 6 of them, but each time I've been so busy organizing that I have just sort of thrown out a few things the last minute.
How does your work serve society?
What I try to do is to get people to really take a look at themselves and make them laugh at themselves. But also I sing in a little bit of a message of my own philosophy, I guess, and it kind of works out that way. But I think a lot of times we need to lighten up a little bit. And I hope I'm able to do that and at the same time make people a little conscious of issues such as bigotry and the environment, especially old age, problems with the elderly.
Things that people forget about or try to
Very often, yeah.
shove under the carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested in working against stereotyping and racial tension that's really simmering in the city and really all across the country in the urban environment. So, I think it's a lot like what you're speaking about in comedy. I mean, people have to sort of be aware and, reflective, and then, the issues can be talked about and resolved if it's possible.
And I think this place does serve society. We can see just walking down the street. You could be having a bad day and walk right into past this garden and just be so lifted. And in any season, this garden looks beautiful. What event or experience made you choose your career or made you certain of the choice you had made?
Well, for me, I really like working with people, and it's that moment when, as an artist, you sort of communicate an idea to someone else. That's what I really find rewarding. I've been interested in art since I was really young. I mean, looking at other people's work was the initial kind of inspiration. And now just kind of developing on my own and continuing that tradition, the humanistic tradition, I guess you'd call it. But really, when the work is used by the public and people respond in ways that I have no idea from my own input, it's very rewarding. So that's an inspiration that keeps me going.
My humor had always been something that had gotten me through a lot of things. So I figured that I could express myself, I could be more in control. When I moved to New York, I just got tired of doing the audition scene in the cattle calls and relying so much on somebody else hiring me. This way I could create my own work. I still felt like an artist rather than an actor or a comedian. I was creating something. I was in control. And I also found that there was a unique little niche for what I did that not a lot of people were filling. So that was wonderful for me.
I want to know what you do to stay on track towards your dream, and what do you do to keep focused?
Just being able to keep going. I mean, it's all right if you can keep pushing. If you're always busy and you feel like you're evolving as an artist and you're doing something, that's a focus. I mean, I don't like to it's hard to stop. It's hard to take a break because then all the doubts and the hardships, they start to really take over. So it's just really working at the craft, the discipline.
Challenging yourself all the time too. You know, I'm always facing fear, whatever that is.
Fear is the thing that keeps everybody from doing most of what they want to do. And I mean, sometimes I catch myself in the house just sitting there watching TV and eating popcorn because I know I'm supposed to be doing something else, but I can't quite face it yet. You know, maybe if I eat that bowl of popcorn, I can get to it. But you know, then I get over that, and then I move forward. You know, I don't let myself stay in the popcorn bowl. But no, that's what I do. And now also to realize that we can endow ourselves and that we have power, and not say, I don't know, I was raised basically probably to be an underachiever, but I realized that I can have what I want. You know, we can all have our dreams. We have to have the courage to go after our dream. And that's where the trick is, and the proof is to stay, like you said, centered on the dream, you know. And when you do stay focused on your dream, it's amazing how many people support you in your effort to move towards your dream.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure you found that when you said that in your interview with the garden. I mean, people, whatever, you said they came from all over wanting to help. I mean, I think when people see that something's truthful and good and it creates value, and that's really, I want to create value, and I want a forum for people to really inspire other people to do what they want to do. No matter who they are, they don't have to be a Broadway star, or they don't have to be, you know, some major gardener who's on TV, you know, doing garden. That anything you want is possible in some way if you have the guts to go out and get it.
It's also allowing yourself to not succeed every single time. I hate the word fail, but not succeed every time. That way, when you stumble, if you fall, you're always falling upstairs because you're moving forward. You know, you're always heading forward, but you've got to take that chance. I read this quote by Henry Fonda a few years back, and he said, you should do something to risk your career like every 14 months. Something that puts you right on the line. Otherwise, you never grow. And that's really stayed with me, and I found that to be true.
I want to thank you all, really, for being with me. It was great. I had a good time. This is really fun, and I really want to thank you for sharing your lives with us and taking time out of your busy schedules to do that. And I want to thank all of you for joining us. And if you want to share anything with us, please contact us. And until the next time, be well.
This is Jason Green, and from all of us, that's something to offer to all of you. Dare to dream and go for it.